Well, welcome to the Growler Hour. And, Josh always wants to be the one to say,
It's because I say it better. I just do. Like, that's a known fact.
but
I just have a better voice for it. Like, what's up?
Welcome
What's
to
up?
the Growler Hour.
What's up? This is the Growler Hour. Oh, boy.
You trying to say I say it's squeaky?
Doing a little bit of an exaggeration, but I stand behind it.
Growler Hour, and here we are.
Yeah, so we have a special interview lined up for this podcast, which actually we had some huge technical difficulties and lost pretty much the entire podcast that we recorded except for the interview. So we're here over a Zoom call trying to make up for that mess and introduce kind of what's going on. So anything you want to say before I jump into it, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, so we started it, and then I think our mindset is like, fuck it, let's run it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So since this is a makeshift growler hour right now, all I got in my hand is a little Saint Archer tropical IPA. No special name.
I have a small little
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Yeah,
that's cute.
Like probably less than 20. And
I remember my first craft beer. I'm just kidding. I know, I'm an asshole, whatever. So yeah, we have an interview with Scott Lucas from Sanctum Brewing in Pomona, California, which is in the middle of a transition of whether they're going to be closing their doors or not due to the effects of COVID-19 and things that were outside of their grasp. And I'm sad to see the place go. It was my first real brewery experience. It was my hometown brewery because it was right down the street from me, and glad we got to sit down with Scott and kind of give a little interview. And big shout out to Scott, and thank you to Scott for bearing with us. What was supposed to be a quick 30-minute interview turned into 2 freaking hours.
Right.
Poor guy. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet. I started listening to it after all the technical difficulties that we were having. I really didn't get a chance to listen to it because I've been trying to fix and salvage the recordings that we made, and it just did not work. But thank you to Scott, because probably for about 30 minutes, he's like, all right, in a minute, I got to go. And we're just like, wait, one more question. So, Jimmy, tell Scott thank you.
Thank you, Scott, because I was kind of keeping it on because it was super hilarious with your first time. Your first time. Yeah.
Those are our first official podcast trying to do it, and we had some technical difficulties with the audio and all the video and basically everything, so it's a whole screwed up mess, and we have to use the Zoom call. Thank God that we recorded our end on the Zoom call, or else I'd have no audio except for Scott's voice, which Scott was gracious enough to record himself on a microphone and send us his recording. So we have his full audio, and we're gonna sound like shit. So it's a reverse podcast. The interviewee has the better sounding quality, while we sound like we're stuck in cyberspace.
Yeah, so
tell me, Jimmy, what do you have to say? What do you have to say for yourself?
What do I have to say for myself? I'll say that, man, Josh lost.
Man, a few words.
Josh lost his virginity over there.
See, making it sound like I did some dirty things in Sanctum, but what he means is I lost my brewery virginity by going to Sanctum, because that was my first brewery.
In a little way.
You got to give context, Jimmy.
Say it. I'm just
Context. I can't believe I'm really mad that our podcast is going to sound shitty on our first episode, but you know what? It's our first episode, and there were bound to be technical difficulties. I thought I had prepared for everything, and I did not. So the next one will be good.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry because I'm sure people talk about like a lot of shit about me.
They don't even have to really watch the podcast to do that, Jimmy. They just see you and they're like, "What the fuck is this guy? He looks rough."
Fuck. Is that how you guys really see me? Like,
oh no, just right now. Just sometimes, man. Sometimes you look pretty rough. Like you've been playing The Last of Us until what time last night?
Fucking 5:30.
5:30. So you look rough, bro. Like I'm just being honest with you, as a homie, as you know, a friend. I love you, man, but you look rough. You've been playing The Last of Us too much.
Yeah, thanks, Dick.
Did you even brush your teeth this morning, man?
Yes.
Are you well prepared for your day? Did you shower?
I didn't shower yet.
Yeah. Well, you probably just woke up not too long ago, so we'll forgive you.
It was like an hour ago. Dick.
Yeah. Well, again, shit, man. So, anyways, we were able to sit down with Scott Lucas from Sanctum Brewing, and that was fun. There's a lot of great stories that we shared, a lot of great stories that he shared, and some questions that, you know, as us who are not real brewers or real craft beer people, like we're not real beer snobs. We go to breweries, we have beer, we love beer, and we're doing this for the love of beer. But we really don't know. We're not the kind of people that's gonna sip on a beer and be like, a little hint of elderflower. It's just at the tip of my tongue.
Can we talk about the brewers that are like that?
No, we cannot.
Oh no, they're not.
And no offense to anyone who's like that. It's just that's not us. That's not the kind of people we are. And it's the same thing with like food. They're, you know, chefs and people who experience food in a different way. And that's just not the way that we experience our beer. And I drink my beer to drink my beer because I love my beer. But I'm not going to sit here and dissect every flavor. Maybe once we start brewing a little bit here and there, maybe we'll learn to add that to our list of talents.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I know you love your t-shirts, but you know, I'm just like, sometimes.
I do love my t-shirts. And for anyone who is a podcast purist listening to this and not watching the video, head to YouTube and you can see why Jimmy apparently loves to make fun of my shirts. It's floral. It's floral. I do wear a lot of floral things, which is fine, man. I'm comfortable with who I am, and you know, if I want to wear flowers on my body, I want to wear flowers on my body. All right? What you got to say to that?
Damn it. I was trying to catch you, fool.
What's up?
What's up?
What's up?
What's up?
Try to catch me slipping.
Hey, fool.
So, yeah, so how did you feel about everything that happened with last week's or I guess we recorded it last week. I've been sitting on it for a week because of the technical difficulties. Been trying to fix it all frickin' week, man. And my audio interface took a bad dive, and I had to uninstall and reinstall programs, uninstall and reinstall drivers. But you know, as far as the experience goes, Jimmy, how do you feel about it? Like, I think we had a fun time, and
I understood.
Got down to brass tacks.
I understood. So everything that happened, I understood.
You understood? Are you drunk already, Jimmy?
No. But
with such conviction.
Yeah. No, I understood. I understood that everything that happened, and I was like, all right, fuck it, let's run it.
Yeah, man, maybe you shouldn't be staying up till 5:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah, no, dude.
You are like, you are dead. You're a man of few words right now. You look rough. Get some sleep, Jimmy.
Oh, I need a lot of sleep. So
Yeah, I can tell, man. Everybody, please go over to the YouTube and to the YouTubes, to the YouTube and watch the video so you can see how rough Jimmy looks right now.
man,
And so you can see the shirt that Jimmy hates so much that I'm wearing, since he wants to call me out on it.
come on, dog.
Leave your opinion in the comments about my shirt.
Floral as fuck.
It is.
Floral.
So,
all right, Jimmy. Well, let's get you back to bed. And without further ado, here's our interview with Scott Lucas from Sanctum Brewing.
Kind of talk to him about what's going on with Sanctum now, and being that it was my introduction to the brewery world, I really just was excited to kind of talk with Scott a little bit about what he did there, and how it kind of influenced, I guess, and I don't want to say in such a broad sense, but influenced beer in Pomona, and influenced me as someone who lived in Pomona right down the street and was so excited to get into craft beer. So without further ado, we have Scott here. Scott, say hi.
Scott. Yo, what up, world?
Hey, how's it going?
Well, I'm living the dream, baby. Just living the dream.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah.
The only beer,
the
only beer I have, by the way, and I'm not drinking it at the moment, is Miller High Life. So, I don't know if
you're going well, what's funny, you know what? Actually, if you go to Texas and so one brewery that I can name in Texas, Deep Ellum. If you go there, they have their water tap. And their water, like the actual tap handle is, I think, Miller High Life or like Miller of some sort, because I guess Miller's the beer of Texas.
Nice.
So their water tap is
just,
I guess, and they have a joke on there. And I feel like this was right down Sanctum's alley, because you guys were kind of jokesters with some of the stuff that you did. And so their tap handle, it was Miller, and then it also had a sign that said, the closest thing we have to Miller. And it's just water. It's literally just their tap for water.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You want to know why I have Miller High Life in my fridge is because I will not name him, but my homie that is a fellow brewer, like in the big leagues, he's worked for some big old breweries that you've definitely heard of, but I don't even want to put the breadcrumbs. He is like obsessed with just cheap macro beer. He loves Miller High Life. And then, but you know what's funny? Like, I don't know how much exposure you guys like, when I go to, back in the day when we go to like trade associations like California Craft Brewers Association or Brewers Association, national things, you would just say hi to people, even from like people in Nebraska have never heard of Sanctum, just like I've never heard of Nebraska, you just hang out, it's all mutual. They have name tags, whatever. And like you would be so shocked how many brewers just love them some cheap macro beer. Like it's staggering. Like it's absolutely staggering because you kind of reach a point where you reach a point where you're just like, this is the only thing that I haven't tasted in so long.
No, I get
you
that.
drink nothing. You drink nothing but craft beer. So then you're like, what's novel for
new?
For real, dude. It's like what's novel for me? What's out of the box? It's like, you know what? Coors Banquet, bro. It's like
man. And let me tell you about Coors Banquet. And what's funny is like for a long time, Coors, like just regular Coors was not something that people drank for, I think, a while. Like everyone was Coors Light or Budweiser, Bud Light. Yeah. And then I think recently when Coors like redefined their standard beer and they became quote unquote banquet beer again. That's when they started booming again. But no hate.
I know. And well, that's the thing. Like, honestly, I went through my phase. The only thing I'll ever say about macro breweries and the only reason I ever threw shade, if you will, as the kids say, I'm 34, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say stuff like that. I feel old.
You can say whatever you want on the podcast, man.
I just when I say stuff like
we're not that far behind you. So
when I say throw shade, I'm just like I just feel it's silly. I love the phrase, but I just feel like
I feel the same way. And even me, I'm 28, going on 29. We're both 28, 29, and even like we're not that far away from you. But even like still like. When I say certain things, I'm like, is it okay for me to say?
I know.
Like, am I dating myself? Like,
yeah.
Like, do I sound old?
Do you sound like an old dude trying to sound hip and with
exactly. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
so
he is. He's trying to be very hip.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
I try.
You're succeeding.
Thank you.
Like what happens with the macro beer is just their buyout tactics. We're fine. I'm not mad at anybody who is going to take a payday. Like who wouldn't? If they're throwing that kind of money in your face, and if you're Elysium or 10 Barrel or Breckenridge or any of the places that got bought, it's like, yeah, dude. I mean, you started this as a hobby. You're probably 15 years in. You're done. You know what I mean? Like, you're done. So
at that point, you're you can either sell it off or still be part of it, but at that point you're looking at the bigger picture.
So can I ask what exactly got you into craft?
Well, there was a show called Brewmasters on Discovery Channel, and it was Sam Calagione from Dogfish Head. That was like the show was like about Dogfish Head in Delaware, and I think they like legit only made like 8 episodes.
Delaware of all places.
Yeah.
Mind you.
And but like at the time Dogfish was up and coming. They were already 50 state distros, so like they had you could find them pretty much all over the country. They were just like kind of craft was coming into its like second renaissance at this time. Right. So watch that, and it was just cool because they just make dumb beer. They make weird stuff. If you guys have ever had it, or seen it or heard about it. We don't get like the crazy weird stuff. Like at GABF one year they had Choc Lobster, which is like a chocolate lobster beer. And like, I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Which actually reminds me of the California Roll-In.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell like they're, Dogfish Head was definitely our spirit animal. Like when we opened, we were like, let's be weird. But, that's what got us into
it. I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To answer Jimmy's question, like just thoroughly, it was like literally like we just wanted to like that. We're like, that looks like fun to just throw like bread scraps and like cedar shavings into it. Like, I'm like, I had no idea beer could be like that. I was not a beer drinker at all. I didn't like macro beer. I didn't like, but then, so that show is what opened me up to craft. Cause then I went and bought some Dogfish Head. And because Jason, my business partner, who ran Sanctum with me the whole time up until,
and I believe I've met him before. He's
brewer,
bald, right?
He's the bald guy.
Bald guy with the blonde beard.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, I remember him. Okay.
Yeah, so he was my roommate when we were watching this, so we were like, just like, oh, this show's super cool, and I think he bought some beer, or I bought some beer, and we bought Midas Touch from Dogfish Head, and it has like muscat grapes, saffron, honey, and like all this weird stuff that just quote unquote doesn't belong in beer. So we were just like, dude.
Basically these things that are from the mid-century or not even mid-century, like Middle Ages.
Yeah,
like elderflower.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And that's how you get Tangeronimo, baby.
Yeah.
So that's all it was literally just like, that looks cool. I didn't know brewing could be like that. I want to do some weird stuff. So we literally went from not brewing to like me reading a couple books, convinced my wife to let me spend like $700. I bought like a,
always gotta ask permission.
Yeah. I bought like a do-it-yourself, by do-it-yourself, I mean, I cobbled together pieces from like More Beer and Home Depot and made an all-grain system. That was
okay. So if I can ask, around what year was this? Because now we have all these home brewing kits that are just like over the shelf on Amazon. Just buy them, and you have this entire kit with the hops. You have freaking like every single component that you need, plus the bucket to make it in, or the small stainless, whatever.
Right. Well, and so what happened, like, just for the brief overview of like what most homebrewers do, and then what most craft or any breweries do is like, you know, we got all of our, you know, most homebrew kits that are like easy is like your barrier to entry is like whatever, $80 and a food grade bucket, right? And you're in, you know, and you can make 5 gallons of beer, because that what you're doing then is boiling, you know, malt extract and watering it down, and then you're making, you know, a beer. And so the, you know, the pro brewing, quote unquote, or all grain brewing at home, you're just extracting the malt, or you're getting your extract from the malt yourself by cracking the grain open, etc. So we never did the like basic version. We just went straight to all grain. So I've never brewed.
So you guys
extract.
didn't get to experience the extract,
Right.
the you know, the shortcut, basically.
Yeah, and honestly, I've had great extract beers. I just never was interested in it because I learned that all the cool stuff I saw Sam Calagione doing was all grain.
Right.
You know, he was manipulating the mash a lot of times, and I was like, oh, dude, that's what I want to do. So then it like, you know, I probably could have been brewing for 2 months, but I wanted to save more money to go all grain right off the bat. So that's how we got into it. And then the rest is just like, and this was probably 2011. So, you know,
Okay, so not that long ago, I guess.
yeah, no, and there were definitely
but-
kits. More beer was a big deal. The internet was not as ubiquitous back then. Like this is 9 years ago, so it wasn't as easy to just like, I'm gonna order X, you know, thing off Amazon. Like, but you know, you'd go to More Beer. You could, if you wanted, ask them for recipe suggestions, and it'd be basically a pull sheet. Like, you know, you because they have all their grain in bins. Like, just go grab this much of this much of that, put it in a bag, mill it up, take it home, have a brew day, you know, whatever. So, yeah.
So that actually brings a question to my head, which is something that I wanted to ask later on. But so it seems like everyone in the craft industry. So mind you, we're just a couple of kids, not kids. I mean, we're 29, 28, but a couple of kids who just like beer.
Right.
But don't really know too much about the brewing process or like the industry or like anything like that.
Right.
So, and like kind of what you're explaining to me and what I've seen, it seems like it's an industry where most people are pretty accepting of each other. Most people are pretty open to working with each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really too many, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can give us some insight, but it doesn't seem like there's very many rivalries or like people wanting to like keep their secrets so hidden that that like no one's able, like, you know, just being like they're not being dicks to each other. Right.
No, yeah, I mean, it is an insanely open and collaborative, you know, thing. I think, I don't know this for sure. I you know, I really have nothing to base this on. I do feel like now we're getting into, so this is, I think we're getting into a phase where now people might start to become a little bit more competitive, just because
I can see that.
We saw the wave kind of rise. Like when Sanctum opened in 2014, it was like, if you build it, they will come, you know? So we were in, you know, non-visible location, you know, in the middle of Pomona. Yeah. And like if you found it, you loved it because it felt secret and it was awesome. And you tolerated the heat, tolerated the shitty furniture, tolerated, you know, because it
wasn't shitty. No, actually, if you go, once you go back and if you decide to listen to this episode, you will hear Jimmy compliment your guys' benches.
I for sure will listen to it.
I was super like,
he was excited about those benches.
Yeah, I was like super comfortable over here. I don't know. Well,
dude, a slab of pine will do that, man. Just
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You just need a little bit of pine on your bum and you're good.
Yeah, dude. That's it.
Yeah. Throw a little lacquer on there.
Well, thanks for the love, dude. I mean, we honestly, I mean, like for real though, when we opened, so here's like just, you know, starting a business 101, like you raise money, you think of what you need to buy, and then you raise a little more money and you think of what you could buy. And so, you know, we raised a little more. Still, this thing was done. Like, I still don't know how we did it. Like, we probably still just got away with a lot. But we ended up, like, we were going to open with like a 3-barrel system, which is, you know, 9 kegs, you know, or 91 gallons of, you know, yield is what you should get out of that. Right. So,
okay.
I felt a little bit sad that you guys were kind of closing down. Sorry to bring that up. I was like,
hey, you're bringing that up out of nowhere, Jimmy. He's literally explaining to you how they started, and you're like, yeah, I'm sad to hear that you guys closed.
I really wanted to buy it. I was
he's bored. He's like, don't tell me this story.
Exactly.
I wanted to grab a growler. from you guys. So I was like,
he's just giddy. He's like, I was really excited to try Sanctum Beer again.
yeah. And I was just like, oh man.
Well, I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't know what'll happen. We're still navigating it. Yeah, we're still navigating everything. You know, we've talked to potential buyers. Like I can't legally name anything that's happening. Yeah, but it's like, we've talked to buyers. We've talked about reopening. We've talked about keeping it going. You know, all that stuff. It's just tricky, dude, because you know, like I said, we started with like a shoe. My point was just we started with a shoestring budget, and the first thing to go was furniture. Okay. We're like, dude, you know what's better than furniture is good beer and having a big system. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what's better than just beer? Beer.
And back then,
fucking fold up chairs. And
doesn't matter, dude. Just literally have bean bags and cushions. Who cares? Like, you know, just we're the hippie brewery.
The beer speaks for itself.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
It was nice,
and
it had like really good ambiance.
And I can say that my first impression. So let me go on a tangent.
Okay.
My first impression. Yeah, tangent away. My first impression of Sanctum. I got there, and first of all, it was right.
Mugged.
No, so I'm actually from the area. I live
so you
right
know
up the street from you guys. Yeah. I was right off of. Okay, so you guys are right off of town.
Yeah.
I was right off of town in town in San Bernardino, which is right below the 10 freeway.
Yeah.
So I was right there on the corner, basically. So I think I was 2 miles away, so I could walk to you guys in 20 minutes. So my first experience, I was hanging out with some of my friends from Rancho Cucamonga. Shut up, Jimmy. Yes, he took my virginity. It's okay. We can talk about it now, okay?
Where
I'm not
did he touch
traumatized
you?
or anything. He touched me in my heart with this great beer.
Thank God. Thank God that's what you said.
No, so I was hanging out with some friends from Rancho Cucamonga, and I was hanging out with a friend who introduced me to the guy who was very into craft beer at this point. And Jimmy, shut up. So he was very into craft brewing at this time, and he wanted to brew himself. And so we decided we were going to go to downtown Pomona that night just to go drink and have some fun. Right. And on our way, he was like, "Hey, wait, let's stop at this place. We're going right next to this brewery. Let's stop there first." So we ended up stopping at Sanctum.
Nice.
Which at first I was like blown away because it's right next to me and I never knew about this place. And I want to say that we ended up there on your guys' first anniversary, but I may be completely wrong. But I remember going there, loving the atmosphere. At that point, you guys were serving pretzels with your beer, or like giving out allowed. Yeah.
Like a bucket of pretzels in which you could grab.
Yeah, you had a bucket of pretzels in which we could go grab our tray and grab pretzels.
Right.
And so I remember being there and like loving the atmosphere, loving everything. The first beer that I had, and without spoiling too, like I have to spoil so many things by just talking to you, but I won't. Okay, so I just remember having a really good beer. I'll talk about it later.
Right.
But I remember having a really good beer, a coffee flavored beer, and it won me over. I was like, this place, like, holy crap! All I've had is Hangar 24 orange wheat,
right?
And all of a sudden, I'm drinking this great coffee beer. And so I remember while I was there, it was nighttime, and there was a big earthquake, and you guys had like shirts hanging on the walls and stuff, and everything fell, like everything fell. Yeah. And that was at a time where I think, were you there? Do you remember this?
Yeah, I was. I think, because my friend Jonathan was there helping us out back in those days, and he literally took a picture of like this little cardboard sign that like was not even harmed, but it just fell down, and he posted it on his personal Instagram, and it said, "We will rebuild."
You know what's funny? And while it happened, it was a pretty big earthquake. Like
it shook stuff. Yeah,
it rumbled and things fell, and I'm pretty sure the bartender at that time. I remember some. Obviously, no, they all weren't they?
They're fired.
I saw George sneaking his beers. No, No, I remember the bartender at that point was like, "Is everybody okay?" And a big roar across the room. Yeah! It was great. That was my first experience in a brewery, and I was like, "This is it. This is what I need in my life."
Yeah,
and
no,
so
that's.
here we are.
Thank God for that, man. I'm glad you had that experience, and I'm thrilled to hear that that was your first time there, because stuff like that would happen throughout the years, and I try to remember those moments because they were so like fun and precious.
Right.
If it's any appreciation, first time I've seen this guy in years, he takes me there.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah, we reconnected because we're friends from high school.
Right.
And we reconnected maybe about 3 years ago. We'll just say 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And, when he came down to my area, because he moved out to Seal Beach at this point. And when he came down to Pomona to hang out with me, first place I took him,
hold up.
Sanctum.
I drove an hour to go see him.
Oh, dang. Oh, snap.
Wow.
And then he was like, "Let's go walk over there." And I'm like, "Oh, like, really?"
Okay, let me preface this by saying this guy walks everywhere. He lives maybe 10 minutes from Ballast Point in Long Beach.
Oh, nice.
So he walked 15 minutes. Okay, whatever. He can walk to just Ballast Point, or he can walk to Beechwood, or like a bunch of breweries that are in that area.
Dang.
So I was
nice.
Like, yeah, it must be nice. Yeah, exactly. But then again, I could do the same thing with Sanctum. I was just too lazy. I would drive there.
Plus it's Pomona, dude. I mean, it's like.
Plus it's Pomona.
Depending on the time of day,
Exactly. And growing up there, I've had my share of experiences. But because I actually grew up there basically my entire life, and I've lived there until the last 3 years. 3 years ago. 2-3 years ago, I moved out here to Anaheim, which is where we're recording this right now.
Oh, nice.
And I was actually a part of your guys' inner sanctum in the middle of that. Well, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I'd like to move on and ask you a few more questions.
Go for it. Shoot.
I know Sanctum had a few medals or awards. I think one of them was for Tangeronimo, maybe a bronze medal. Am I correct?
That's a good question.
Or was it Deus Vult?
Deus Vult has a few awards to its name. One of them is definitely bronze.
Oh, so you guys have plenty of awards, apparently.
I mean, not so much that like it's not like I have a drawer overflowing with them, and I'm just like, they just keep sending them.
I don't believe that. I honestly don't believe that.
No, I mean
they just keep sending them. I don't know what to do with them.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Can I tangent off that question? So, what is your go-to and favorite beer to make?
Wait, we'll get to that, Jim. We'll let him explain that. We'll get to
Spoiler alert, it's later in the episode.
That's a whole tangent.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. So, yeah, like the awards, okay, so I have a mixed feeling. And, like, literally, I don't know. I got to hit up my boy, Jared Isham. He's a filmmaker who was going to make he was trying to make a documentary series 3 episodes long about 3 different size breweries, and I don't know. He said it came out, but then I couldn't find it because it's supposed to be on Amazon Prime. But but he said it's.
Tell me because I would love to watch this.
Oh, for sure. I'd love to see my fat self too because I was 30 pounds heavier.
You're not that big, man. I mean,
back then I was rounder, bro. I was rounder.
I'm probably your size the last time I saw you now. So I think we're good.
We're good. Beer's not the best dieting device. But,
no, it is not. And I imagine going into an industry like that, it's not very easy to.
Oh, dude, I lost.
Retain your weight.
It's very hard to lose weight because I walked in one brew day, like at Sanctum, I walked 6 miles, and you've seen Sanctum. It's not that big. I walked like my pedometer on my phone was like you walked like 6.7 miles, and I was like, where?
Wow.
Where? Just like going back and forth, going to the roll up door, getting on the forklift.
I'm not in Laverne. What the hell?
So, no. I mean, as far as awards, I do want to talk about this because I think we always had kind of an interesting love-hate relationship. So in that documentary, I brought it up is because he asked us about it, and I was like, it's fun. It feels good to win an award. Like, who wouldn't feel good? Yeah.
Obviously.
But we don't. If we start to chase that and that becomes what we want, then brewing for a brewing for a beer judge
Okay.
is a lot different than brewing what the customer wants. Beer judges
Yeah.
are like, they're conservative in their love of style because they have to be objective. So they're like, we don't want to see something new. Like it takes a year after something becomes popular for them to even make a style for it because they don't yet know what the style is, what's representative of it. So like Hazy only had a category last year at GABF. So they've been out longer than that. So I could be wrong about that. But
and now Hazy's like the biggest craze of brewing right now. So
and so of course they're gonna have, you know, different parameters because I mean, think about it. How are you gonna judge something that's like there's only 100 versions of it that have ever existed, and you're like, this one's the best based on what?
Well,
you know,
I mean, Coca-Cola. I mean, that was the first Coca-Cola. So
yeah, and but you know, and you can judge too. Yeah, and but they're like I said, that's just their nature. So brewing for them is different than brewing like for
I get
you know what your customers like. So whenever we won an award, honestly, when we won the biggest, like, I guess, wow award we won was in 2017 Great American Beer Festival. We won a silver medal for Helles Lager, and that was like,
wait, okay, so I know about that. And the Helles Lager, it was like the more lime infused one, right?
No,
like
so we had a lime infused version. But
did it become your guys' regular for a second?
Oh, hold on, my son wants me.
I can't remember the name.
There you go. Yeah, so yeah, we had I can't remember it either because we did like 2 versions of it where we took that and just put lime in it, and people loved that too. But the regular it was just German Helles Lager, and that it's a fairly tricky category to win in because there were 110 entries that year in that category.
Wow.
And those are all people that felt bothered enough to send them in, but that, you know, and but yeah, so yeah, it was my go-to.
Yeah, it was really good. Well, I don't know about the German one, but I know the extremely lime infused one.
Yeah.
As soon as that came out, I tried it, loved it, and it was just like good beer. Like,
yeah, no, that's the thing.
It was just your good, like typical beer.
Yeah, it's not like adding lime to like Banquet, you know.
It wasn't like a Bud Light lime or like
it was fresh lime in a real all malt beer, you know. So I mean, it's gonna taste like. This is the thing, like when it comes to macro beer, like we were joking about earlier, it's like I'd rather have like an all malt, like I'd rather drink Solar flavor wise than any macro beer. But sometimes the allure of those beers is that they don't taste like much. You know, they're just chugging it and you get a slight buzz.
I get that.
So it's like a hard seltzer.
Which, well, to be honest, earlier before we started the podcast and started breaking open the growler, we were drinking Bud Light and Tecate. So
nice. How is it?
We had a little michelada, and it was good.
I'm not stuck.
It was good. But that actually brings me to a point. That Helles Lager, so specifically the limier one, the lime infused one that I remember, I think it became one of you guys' regulars.
It might have for a short time. I know for a fact we never produced large batches of it. We might have done we might have been kegging and then pureed some lime and then
during
put
the
that
time
in the keg or
before I
something
moved
like that.
to Anaheim, it definitely was on the menu every time that I went. And with good reason, because it was such a good, just regular smooth beer.
Yeah.
Like if they could replace like Bud Light, like any other beer with that, like golden. Like that's the like to me, and not to like blow smoke up your ass, but like that's my favorite. Like that was my like favorite lager. Please do. No, but that was like my favorite lager. Like it was so good. And one of the things that defined it for me was, okay, I'm gonna grab a growler of this or a crowler. I can't remember what I grabbed, but I got that, and I went home and I made micheladas with it, and they were phenomenal. Like the flavor of the. You and me might have had one too.
Nice. Well, that sounds. Now I'm getting nostalgic.
So many things that I could talk about Sanctum, and one of them is beer mosas. And I know, like for a while on Sundays, you guys would do beer mosas, which were great. Like it's not really my thing, but it was like great to go to a brewery because I've been to places I will name drop right now. Congregation Brewing. I think it's Congregation.
Yeah, in Azusa.
Yeah, and Zeus is one of the locations.
Yeah.
No, specifically, I went to that one. My girlfriend ordered, or she asked, like, do you guys do micheladas? And the guy replies, I would never do that to a beer. I was like, what the fuck?
Don't you love when people have that?
Ass.
No, this
and,
is
like,
yeah.
what's wrong with that?
I know.
Like, it's just, it's making a whole, I don't know, whatever.
Well, you know, I'll share my thoughts with stuff like that. Is like,
yeah.
First of all, if you think beer has always been this static, rigorous practice, then you've only thought about German's tradition of beer, because the Belgian tradition of beer is like and when I say we, I don't mean America or, you know, our culture. I just mean like people eventually named Belgian styles. When Trappist breweries, like the monks, were making a beer, they'd call it 12, 8, 10. Like that was the beer name and the beer style. It was not triple. It wasn't Dubel. It wasn't, you know, Bier de God. It was just like, this is 12. And it was
this
like 12.
Batch 1, batch 2.
It was like 12 gravity points, which don't even exist anymore. Like it was just this random scale that they have. And they were like, this one's stronger.
Okay. So it wasn't even batch number. That's what I was thinking.
It wasn't.
Literally
it was like this
one
was.
This is the level of beer that we've had. And,
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all it was.
That was
and
my really bad German-Irish accent. So.
You got it. You got it well. But that's it.
Don't get on the Kolsch thing.
Oh,
the Kush.
No, let's not do that.
It's But that's the thing, is that like I think Sanctum, we did a lot of things wrong, but one of the things we did right was always encouraging the staff, and in our interactions with people, no shaming of what people like, and no snobbery. It's just not. It doesn't have a place in beer, because those Belgian monks were literally brewing with like, what do we have? You have a sack of wheat and oats and some molasses. Let's make a beer out of that. And then they call, and then people are like, this is really good. Make it again. And they're like, all right, what should we call it? I don't know, 11. You know, it's like it's like, okay, so what do you call that style? It's like, well, then the brewery down the street started making it.
Actually.
Yeah, and then that's how styles were born. And then we called them a style, and then we pretended like everybody made them the same, and that this is how you make a traditional example. And it's like, that's true now because we look back in time, but it's like, dude, in Germany, even before they had the Reinheitsgebot, their purity law, they were brewing with all kinds of stuff because it was whatever was at hand. And then they took an approach of just like, let's make this a pure drink that's only brewed with these 4 ingredients, and that's it. And it's like, cool, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like, not every country, not every, you know, tradition of beer came from that, you know.
Right.
The whole, you guys remember there was this resurgence recently of Kvik yeast, and it's Norwegian farm sale, and it's like
remember we know nothing about brewing, so
so well this was
You're teaching us a lot.
Yeah, so yeah, there was a new yeast that came out a couple years ago where they were like, the Norwegian farmhouse yeast. And it's like, these dudes are literally, their breweries, quote unquote, are like this. They're like 100 square feet. They're on a farm, and they each make their own beer, and they call it like they have a name for it, but Kvik was one of the names. It's like KVEIK.
Okay.
And they, like, I read a little bit of the history, so I'm probably wrong about half the stuff I'm saying, just don't know which half.
Honestly, it doesn't matter to us because we know none of the history.
So
none of the background.
So the stuff like that, though, just the point is
64 ounces in.
Amen. The point of it is that they don't hold anything sacred. Some of their beers are 9%, some of them are 2%, some of them are 12%, some of them are 16% alcohol. They just make it. They just make the beer with what they have, and they ferment it with what they have, and then they harvest their own yeast and keep it going. And it's like, that's what makes them unique. So it's like, you know, our version of like, how dare you put fruit in a beer, you know? And it's just like, I don't do that, but if you want to, I'll serve it to you. I don't care.
How dare you?
It's like when someone goes to
it's not good.
It's like when someone goes to a restaurant, and they ask, in like a fancy restaurant, they ask for ketchup, and everybody in the restaurant freaks out. And it's just like, bro, they like ketchup.
You mean you're not using ranch?
Like
Yeah.
mustard?
You mean ranch?
Yeah, or
red
you don't
ranch?
want my homemade garlic aioli, and it's like, yeah, maybe, but I also want ketchup. You know, why is that bad? Why does it matter to you?
You don't
You're
want
not the
our
one eating
homemade
it.
garlic aioli with bone marrow?
Yeah, are you driving
Really?
my mouth? Like, no. Yeah,
You're really gonna put steak
Now I want
sauce
some
on
fucking
that
cats up, bitch.
exactly.
Excuse our language.
That's all a michelada is. That's all a michelada is.
Yeah,
you know?
what?
Just
I
doing
mean,
whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a michelada earlier, so it was great. But I do want to touch on something.
Go for it.
The monks. So monks
Yes.
are real.
They
Brewing
sure
monks are real.
As far as I know,
Um,
I've never seen one.
So okay, wait. No, hold on, Jimmy, hold on. So you haven't seen the show. So Scott, have you heard of it? It's a new show on Netflix. It's about brewing. It's about like owning a brewery. I can't remember what it's called right now. Jenny.
I've heard about it. I don't remember the name either. It's like Brew Brothers. Is that what it is?
Brew Brothers. Yeah, that's it.
I have not watched it.
Oh, it's so funny. So I don't think it'd be funny to the general public, but to people who love beer, it's definitely funny.
Okay.
And it's a Netflix original. And
Said the
there's a
disembodied
point-
voice.
yeah. In the background, the ghost. Where is she? No. So it's a show, and at one point, so I guess the main brewer at one point trained with these monks in Belgium. And so eventually he opens this brewery, and at a point the monks come, and so it's this big crazy thing. It's a funny show, really.
Is
funny.
it a fiction or is it like a documentary?
It's whole fiction.
Okay.
It's like fiction, but based on probably real shit that happens. Because it's basically their premise is that they're a brewery in LA, trying to make their way, trying to get into like the conventions and promote themselves, and they're just struggling the entire time. And which is weird because the main brewer or the main owner like came from real Belgian monks, and anyways, so it's funny. And I thought the whole monk thing was just like for the show. I thought they were like saying like, oh, like, you know, in Germany or like Belgium, like there's these monks like just over exaggerating basically. And now that you're telling me that it's a real, like I never looked it up because I just thought it was like, I thought it was comedy. Now that you're telling me that, I'm like, holy shit, that's real?
Well,
but anyways,
yeah, no, it's. I'll check it out because I didn't know it was fiction. Now that I know that, I'm much more inclined to watch it. I'm like, I thought it was another like documentary show about brewing, and I'm like, that was my life for 6 years. So why would
you're like, fuck that? I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. So no, Trappist monks. If you go to
that's what they are, Trappist monks. Yeah.
If you go to you know, a lot of places, Lucky Baldwin in Pasadena, or they also have one in, I can't remember. They specialize in having a lot of Trappist stuff. There's a place in the Back Abbey in Claremont. If you've ever been, they only have imported beer, so you can which is why they don't have Sanctum Beer.
That's right. Yeah. But is that the reason, or no?
I don't know.
Back Abbey. Their whole spiel was about basically having like imported beer and imported food and all
they have
stuff.
tons of Trappist stuff, and it's usually Belgian style, you know, beer that's brewed very traditionally by Franciscan, I believe, is the Trappist, like Franciscan monks, which is like, that means a certain thing, that they do certain things, certain practices. And you know, some of the famous beers of the world back in the day, like there was one called West Vleteren 12, which was for a long time before like the craft resurgence was considered like the best beer in the world. It was like highly rated by everybody. And that was only available. It was only available if you went to Belgium and went to West Vleteren Abbey and bought the beer from them. They stopped, they distributed it for like 2 years. And then they were like, our mission as monks is to keep our monastery going. And we sell beer to keep the monastery going. If we export it to America, we don't need to do that. So they stopped. So like they're just like we're over it. So they just like stopped, and so I've only had it once in my life, and it was pretty darn good. But it's a nice Belgian like quad. It's like 12% alcohol or something.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, I mean, I like Belgians. I mean, Belgians are like Belgian style brewing, and I don't know if it's like American Belgian or like actual Belgian, but.
Well, I've had bad
of-
Belgian beer from Belgium, and I've had amazing American beer that is Belgian style, and so it it's.
Well, I feel like
it
it's
swings
the same
both
around
ways.
here. It's like there's craft beer out there, and there's probably macro beer out there as well. You know, you got your main breweries who just do lagers, and there's probably the people who experiment with pigs and cheese and chocolate in Belgium.
Yeah.
You know?
So can I ask now?
No. Cannot.
Give Jimmy his time, okay?
Yeah, okay, Jimmy.
So can I ask now? What is your go-to?
My go-to is okay.
Go-to in what way though?
Yeah, like if I could pick any beer, that kind of question.
Okay, let's say 3 o'clock. What's your go-to?
By the way,
Right.
we're done with our growlers and we're moving on to a 6-pack. So
Nice, hazy little thing called love. So my go-to beer, I honestly can say I don't have like one craft beer or one macro beer that I'm always wanting. Like what I reach for these days is so dependent on what's on tap where I'm at. Like at home, I even rotate stuff I buy at home. So it's kind of a cop-out answer. But these days, I used to I'll tell you, Jimmy, I used to hate IPAs when we opened.
What?
When we first opened, I hated them.
Well, I get that. I used to hate IPAs too. It's an acquired taste.
Yeah,
it's like wine.
We basically like made our first IPAs begrudgingly, and we didn't make them well. And then we got better at West Coast IPAs and stuff. And then my palate expanded, and so now I drink almost exclusively hoppy stuff. But my favorite, I'll tell you this, my favorite beer that I would ever want to drink if I had to pick one beer for the rest of my life would 100% hands down be a dry hopped lager, like a 4.5% dry
lager. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we made a beer called Star Fox that was basically yeah. The label was my favorite part.
To Anaheim, so.
The label was my favorite part. It looked just like the video game from like.
And you guys canned
Super
that
Nintendo.
One, right?
We canned that one, and it saw some distribution, and it was well received and all that. So that beer was like one of my favorite beers that I've ever made because it was literally just like basically Solar, our Helles lager, but dry hopped with Galaxy hops, which are like one of my favorite hops. And it was delicious. It was crushable. You could drink 3 or 4 of them back to back. There was tons of hop flavor, absolutely no bitterness, tons of juicy, fruity flavors, but also tasted like a wonderful lager underneath
My mouth
it all.
is watering.
Yeah, it was perfect. It's literally a perfect beer. Like you can't do better because like hazy IPAs are.
I feel like I only tried that once too because
you missed out.
Either I moved right after it came out, or I moved right before it came out, and maybe I tried it.
Well, then for a while I tried to keep a dry hopped lager on tap, but it's hard because they take a little more time, and then when you finally have it, you're like, dang, now we got to split it into 2 SKUs, and it's.
And you know what? And so. I always thought that like Sanctum for me, like I've been to other breweries, and like to me, maybe I was biased because it was my hometown, but I always felt like Sanctum always came out with the best beers to me personally, because there were IPAs like which was one of my favorite. I can't remember the exact name, but it has something to do with city, like this city IPA or like something city IPA or like
Handmade City.
Handmade Cities.
Yeah.
Cities. It was plural. Cities. Handmade Cities.
Yes.
Yes. IPA. That was one of my favorites, and then you guys stopped carrying it out of nowhere, and I was so upset because it was like I kept going back to Sanctum, like. I found my like personal IPA. I was like, this is the one. This is what I'm going to drink for life. And you guys stopped serving it, and I was so upset.
Well, see what happens. I mean, what happens? We can get into like this. This will lead into why I think Sanctum is part of the reason why Sanctum is where it's at today, as far as like either closed forever or maybe opening again, but probably closed forever. I mean, like what happened is we'd find gold, right? Like we'd make a recipe and be like, damn, this is so good. And then we go, should we make this again? And when we looked at our peers, like some of our other breweries nearby that were crushing it as far as like hype in a good way, like Homage has like 5 times the hype that Sanctum will ever have, you know? And
yeah, but
and
I won't talk about that.
Yeah, no, I love them. I love Matt. I love everything about him. I think they're way better at the things that we weren't good at, which was.
Can I tangent real quick?
It's your show.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, it's my fucking show. Scott, shut up. Let me tangent. No, Homage and the ghost voice in the background will agree with me that Homage, the first time we went there, it was not. If you heard that ghost,
That's
ghost
so
voice
sad.
in the background,
That ghost was not happy.
the ghost was not happy. That ghost threw up that night.
Oh.
But
How much did the ghost drink though?
We were already drinking before we went there, I think.
Well, that's not
It was
Homage's
her birthday
fault.
or my birthday.
We
or
wanted
something.
to try it.
It was a birthday.
It was
and,
like they were having sours and it was all the rage.
Oh.
yeah, and Homage is known for
that's
sours,
that's
right?
the one thing I can't do.
Yeah.
I think.
All
They're-
they had was sours.
Their whole thing was sours. And
Okay.
we went there and like us, like I had sour beers before, but I wasn't like too big of a fan. She had never had a sour beer.
Right.
She didn't know what she was in for. And she's very specific of like what she drinks. She can't drink a lot of hard liquor because it does not sit well with her palate.
So neither do sour beers apparently.
Neither does sour beers because she went straight to the bathroom and puked. But
Wow.
and I was like, and I hate to like, I don't want to be negative on this show, but I didn't really feel like that was my place. Like
Right.
Homage Brewing wasn't calling out to me.
Right.
So
Well,
I can really say.
I have been going there infrequently because I'm usually busy with my own affairs, right? But I live in Pomona. I live, a mile from the brewery
Cool.
myself, so I'm not. I'm like here. I just bought my house that I've been renting, so, which great time to buy a house, right? When your business is
Great time in COVID and,
and
when your
business
business
is
is
in
going
question.
down and
I'm smart like that, but
I
yeah,
can
dude,
tell.
like it's Homage to me, like if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine, and that's not a knock on anybody, because Sanctum was
no, exactly.
not most people's cup of tea comparatively.
And you can say the same thing about any freaking brewery that's out there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like mainstream beer, so all of a sudden I don't like Ballast Point. So
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's when it comes to things, it's like I have nothing but love for everybody. Even when I didn't like a brewery personally, people would ask me at the tasting room, and I'd just say, like my code was, and I would tell this to my employees, and if someone asked me like, how's X brewery, and like let's say I thought their beer was garbage, I would say like their tasting room's really cool, their staff's friendly.
Yeah.
And I just leave it, and so it's my
Just,
kind of like
just make the compliments.
Yeah.
And
Just
that's how
keep
I feel too. That's how
keep it positive.
I feel like I try to be the same way. I try not to bring the negativity, and I just try
Right.
to say, oh,
because
well,
dude, you
I
have no
didn't
idea
really like their beer, but the atmosphere was great. The atmosphere is all that it's about. So
you have no idea how hard it is when you're a brewer and like somebody is doing better than you. Like you can just tell, you're like, okay, they have way more customers than we do. They're in more bars than we are. And like you personally are just like, you drink their beer and you're just like, I don't get it. Like, you're like, so, I mean, that's what more goes into this whole thing, which is where I think, just to be blunt, if you're curious, like, why did Sanctum like fail? I would say it's because we sucked at marketing.
hold on.
Like,
First off, wait. I don't think. Okay, so here's the thing, and I actually brought this question to myself recently in preparation.
Where were you when you brought it to you?
Where were you? No.
Okay, so can I ask?
No, hold on. No, Jimmy, hold on. Give me a second.
See, this guy just.
I know.
Jimmy,
That's
I'm
the
middle
third
of-
time.
I-
I'm going to give you a yellow card, Josh. I'm going to give you a yellow card.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
interrupt
yeah,
Jim one more time,
I feel like
you're getting a red card.
Wait.
This
But
guy,
There's a reason. I'll let him ask this question. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to
So
tell
now
this guy
it's
to ask
Jimmy's
his
show.
question.
All
Hold
right.
on. He's going to ask his question after I'm with my thought.
Okay.
If I remember my thought anymore, because now after this whole tangent and the 64 ounces, I don't know if I...
Just go, man. Just go.
Thank you. No, but...
Just go. You're already talking about it too much. Yeah. You're a fucking shitty host.
Thank you, Jimmy. Damn it. I'm only mad because I can't remember what my question was, and it was such a good question for Scott. And god damn it, Jimmy.
All right.
So what is
Hit
the
me.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the red ales?
On what?
Red ales.
I don't know what that is.
Red ale?
Hold on.
Sorry. I thought I misheard
Hold
you.
on. I gotta be back for this one.
Red ale. Okay.
Red ales.
That's where I lost.
Because I told him to ask this question because I think Sanctum had a very good red.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I loved. So
We-
I think you guys had one, right?
We loved it
I
too.
can't remember the name.
There's two takes on a red ale, and we have made both. There's the earthy, malty, chewy, red ale that we made called Hamish the Red. That was like our original gangster beer. Like we brewed it with
the one I
actual turnips. That was like
Okay.
the like shtick, but we put enough of them in there that they actually were broken down in the mash, and actually some of that was fermented and became alcohol. So, and then we put turnips in the boil as well to just flavor the beer. And just to give it some earthy terroir, if you will. And there's that take. So that's like a malty monster. It was like 8.25% alcohol. It was like, It was heavy. It had hops in it, but it wasn't bitter or hoppy. Then there's the other way, which is like a red IPA almost, or a hoppy
I
red.
think that's the one that I remember.
Yeah, and we had Red Leader, which we would release on May the 4th.
Yeah,
every
Red
year.
Leader. That's
Yeah.
what it was.
So we do it for Star Wars Day every year. It'd be May the 4th, and we'd have Red Leader.
Is that I never put two and two together that Red Leader was obviously Red Leader from Star Wars.
Yeah. And that's when we made a red beer, because that beer is interesting because it was the special malt that one of the maltsters came up with. Normally when you're coloring a beer like a stout or a brown or a red, you have to use you're using mostly base malt, and then you're using enough of something dark to like color it or tint it or give it the flavor you want. And you don't typically brew beer, by the way, to make it a certain color. You brew, reds taste a certain way because of the ingredients that are in them, not because they're supposed to look red, right? So this was a new malt that came out called Red X that was, you could use 100% of it in your grain bill. So you didn't need anything else. It was just a red colored malt. Like when you brewed with it, it would come out like a nice tint of red, but you could use nothing else. So we're like, let's try it. Let's make 100% red beer, and we'll call it Red Leader, and it's Red X malt. So it was Red X Wing, that kind of thing. So that's how we got into that. I like both versions.
Hey, so can I ask, Scott, what was the easiest one to kind of like process and refine?
As far as like recipe?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's an easy one because Solar, the beer in question that we've been talking about for a while, that's literally another example of where I found a new malt that I wanted to try because I heard about it on a podcast. I heard some brewing podcast, can't remember which one. And this guy was like, you got to try, it was called Bark Pilsner malt. I'm like, oh my gosh, he wouldn't shut up about it. So I'm like, all right, let's just make a beer with nothing else. Like, it's German Pilsner malt. It's a special kind of German Pilsner malt. I don't know what makes it special, but this guy says it's good. I don't even know this guy's beer. I don't even know what brewery he belonged to, but I'm like, let's give it a try. So I did. And that was it, dude. It was one iteration, and then it was just then you change things like hops or, when you're hopping stuff or what temperature you might ferment it. But it was literally like, there were a lot of beers like that were just like, you make an initial thing and it's just like dead simple. It's like, it's just going to be this one kind of barley and that's it. And then this one kind of hop and that's it. And this one yeast and that's it. And then, so then it's just tweaking everything in from there. Like you might tweak, pH or some other nerdy stuff. You might add different brewing salts. You might do, there's different things you can do. But what it really comes down to is just like, I was talking about this with a brewer friend of mine. It's like you get to a certain level of brewing. Like if you ask any like pro brewer who's like worth his salt, you could basically tell him like, brew some obscure style, brew a Dunkelweizen. I've never brewed one. I don't even know how they're normally made. But if you give me the description, I'd give you a grain bill. It would probably taste close. just because like you just
Okay.
know after a while. So then it's just a
Yeah.
matter of like, and I'm not saying it's going to be good, not saying it's going to be the best, not saying it's going to win a medal. It's just like, okay, I get it. It's a dark beer made with wheat and it's a lager. Okay, I'll figure it out. So you just have intuition from making recipes, and most brewers, home brewers brew hyper complicated. Like all my homebrew recipes had like 13 ingredients. All my like, and then scaling those up, we kept them true. We were just like, whatever, we don't want to change them. They were good the way they were. So let's just keep them with overcomplicated recipes. Then when you make a new recipe, you literally think, how many bags of grain is this so that I don't have to have a half bag? Like you think what alcohol strength do I want? And like, how simple can I make it? So I would make a recipe. And if it was like 12 pounds of something, I'd be like, I probably don't need that. I'd just be like, whatever. Wow. If it's not 50 pounds or more, I'm not going to put it in the recipe just because I don't want to I don't want to have grain lying around for no reason.
I want to get to the questions that we originally wanted to ask you, but so talking about that, like if a home brewer who's just starting out and just reads all the directions, how successful do you think that person is versus someone who starts out, reads the directions, and says, "Okay, I'm gonna add some oranges to this, or I'm gonna do this and this." Right. Like, in your opinion, do you think it's better to follow the rules first, or just start out with your intuition?
I think there's never a bad time to break the rules when it comes to brewing, but that's assuming that you actually know the rules, and it's not that you have to brew to know the rules. It's just that you have to know them. So a lot of people, their first beer is usually dog shit because they usually get old ingredients or expired, malt extract, or they don't properly, pitch the yeast. Like they might underpitch, which means you're not giving enough cells to ferment the beer, so it comes out crappy. You might pitch it. It might be too warm when you're fermenting. It might be too cold. Like there's just basic stuff. So if you know those basic rules, clean wort into a clean fermenting vessel. That's like phase one. Then it's like fresh ingredients, like good ingredients. Are you getting good ingredients? Okay, step 2. Step 3, monitoring things and making sure you're setting yourself up for success when you're home brewing. So if you have a closet that's cold and is like in the middle of your house and it seems like a good candidate and it's dark, it's probably going to be fine. My first beer came out, I can honestly tell you my first home brew was amazingly good. It was really good because I spent a lot of time reading and talking to people and asking advice, and and that's part of it's just being humble enough to know you don't know something and just admitting it. But anybody can brew really well the first time. I did, I'm more of like a nerdy scientist when it comes to stuff.
And and I think we were talking about earlier that when the first time you brewed, if I got this correctly, you did non-extra, or sorry.
Correct. Yeah.
You didn't
all
do
grain.
Extract. You did all grain.
Yes.
So that even in itself, because a lot of
all the kits are usually extract.
Yeah, they're all extract, which might be a good starting point. But do you think, so at that point, do you think it's better for someone to buy a starter kit and use the extracts, or do you think it's better to learn you could just buy your own bucket, you can buy your own ingredients and just do all grain?
All grain, it requires more money because you have to buy a mash tun and you have to be able to, and you can do brew. I mean, honestly, if I were going to start over, I'd do brew in a bag because it's kind of the best of all worlds. So you buy it, if for those of you who have never heard of it, it's literally like a big mesh filter or like bag, if you will, that's very strong. And you
put what most of the kits are now. Yeah,
and you basically have, you'd have like a large stainless steel pot that you'd call a brew kettle, and if it has valves, great. If it doesn't, great. Doesn't matter. It's just usually made out of stainless steel, and it's usually large. And you usually have to have a turkey fryer or something more powerful than a stove, because the stove usually can't boil a lot more than like 2 or 3 gallons easily. So that's the special equipment you'd need. But then you take this, you brew in all grain. So you literally take a bag, you fill your grain in there, you mix it in with your water, and that's how you mash. And then when you're going to sparge, you literally like lift the bag up and add your like I can't remember, I've never done it, but I watched my friend came and did it with his homebrew system, and it's like you just need one vessel basically, and you just lift it out, you add your sparge water, rinse out the sugars from the grain, and take the bag out, and you're good to go. And then you literally have your wort in a already in your boil kettle. You boil it, and so it's a lot easier, but you have all the flexibility. I don't think there's any disadvantage to starting with all grain, and I don't think there's, but it depends on your
Well,
goals.
that's what I was thinking too. Is like, okay, I get that like the all grain is the more purest method, and once you start actually brewing on a commercial scale, that's
it's
probably
always all grain.
what you want to do.
Yeah,
and but also, I guess the extract version is a way to kind of just dip your feet into it, right?
Scott, are you like the Breaking Bad?
Are you the Breaking?
No.
Are you the Heisenberg?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who is? You know who is?
Not even in the.
Okay. If you ever go to Beechwood again, I think my vote is for Julian Strago, who's the head brewer at Beechwood.
Oh, I love Beechwood.
Yeah, Beechwood's one of my faves, and
this guy. Actually, I told this guy to bring us a growler of Beechwood today, but apparently
and he failed you.
Growlers.
He failed you.
Yeah, he failed us.
Okay, no.
Let's call it.
Let's still blame.
They're doing. Wait, hold on. Can I explain something? First off, they're doing crowlers of beers that aren't their own, because he brought 2 crowlers of Pliny the Elder.
Wow.
So,
nice.
And they have the Beechwood label on them. So
I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
Nice. Yeah, well, they're allowed to, I think.
Yeah, technically it's
yeah, I mean,
distributing.
honestly,
It's
dude.
not,
Yeah, because any. Go ahead.
Have you guys collaborated a lot with other people, or?
No, we did a couple collabs. The way we did collabs most of the time was we only tried to collab. If you look at like the collaborations we've done, there weren't many, and they were always with people who were clearly like benefiting from the collaboration with us versus us benefiting from the collaboration, because we collabed with like up and coming breweries or home brewers or like, or
and is there a
music
reason
people.
for that?
That's just what I think it gets scummy when people like use collabs in the wrong way, and not everybody does. Like some people are invited to do collabs by breweries who acknowledge their.
Okay, well, I think that translates into any industry. So me being from the music industry, like if you try to collaborate with someone, like most people want you to be on the same level as them.
Yeah.
And they don't really, unless you can really bring something to the table, they're not going to give someone spotlight to someone who's just like not necessarily starting out, but someone who's not on the level. So
if you just picked up a guitar and you want to collab with like, you want to go on tour with Michael Jackson, like why would they give you the time of day? But it's like, but if let's say you're an established artist and you discover somebody's just like, dude, this guy's killing it, and nobody knows who he is, you might do something to help him out. But you would assume their skill level would be so high that it'd be worth your time,
So I have a nice question. From a scale of what do I even compare this to? Of a scale on a scale.
No, hold on. Let me give you the scale before I even know the question. How about on a scale from a stingray to a whale? Let's just go with that.
I was gonna say more.
There's is one better? I don't know.
From hold on. Okay, so
yeah, I like that one too. A rabbit to a deer.
Well, obviously, I mean that's a common one. But what I'm trying to say is like, okay, so on a scale from I was trying to be in the musician's world because we're talking about music.
Right.
On a scale from the Wiggles to on a scale from the Wiggles
to Blue's Clues, or
on a scale from the Wiggles being the lowest and the top being fucking I don't know, like I was trying to think of like the best pop artist. The only person that could come to my mind is Katy Perry, but she's not the best,
right?
In any way, shape, or form.
She's one of the best selling.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I can't think of any pop artists right now. But on a scale of from the bottom of the bottom to the top of the top, like do you consider Sanctum on a number 10 and you collab with 7s, or do you consider yourselves as 7s to collab with 5s?
Yeah, because more like that. We're more like we're nobodies, you know. Nobody like Sanctum is.
I don't believe that.
No, but Sanctum is not. Here's what I would say, if I could be, because I will humble brag, but I will also put myself down, right? Like, my humble brag is this: I think our beer.
I'll bring you back up.
I think our beer was like some of our beer, like especially our lagers, our West Coast IPAs, even like our other traditional Belgian styles, were like seriously world class. Like I believe that because I didn't make all of them, you know, like,
100%.
but it's just like they were legitimately some of the best in the area, and that's not putting anyone else down. I'm just saying we made really good traditional styles and stuff. We sucked at like the stuff that paid the bills, like hazies, you know, like so. But like where we were we just weren't well known. We don't have a lot of notoriety, you know. Like and other brewers have heard of us if they like Belgian doubles. They're like, dude, your guys' DS Fold is one of the best.
Dude, DS Fold. Okay, so bringing us to our next question. So I know when you guys started, you must have been a brewer in some capacity, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had home brewed for years, you know, a couple years, 3 years, something like that.
So when you started Sanctum, did you continue brewing, or did you leave that to the Cicerone, the main brewer? Did you leave that to him, or did you also?
No, I was the main brewer for most of our existence. So Jason.
And so moving on to like year 3. Okay, so I can remember going to you guys' year 3 anniversary.
Right.
So at that point and on, who was the main brewer? And if it wasn't you, were you still involved with the brewing?
Yeah. So I was like, Jason, like for, let's see, I can't remember the date. I think this was probably 2.5 years ago. So I hurt my shoulder at the brewery. I slipped and dislocated my shoulder really badly. And
I think I remember you guys posting something.
And then Jason's a competent brewer. You know, he was just running the other side of the business. He was doing all the not fun stuff, the grown up stuff. He was running payroll and doing our books and stuff like that. So I told him after I broke my shoulder, I was still trying to brew, but I had some help. So you basically
said, like, I'm doing nothing, and now I broke my shoulder, so I'm doing even less of my thing.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because So what I said to him was just like, I said, let's just like swap, because most of my goals for like the business are not necessarily about making the next beer great. Okay. It's more about like, how can we grow distribution? How can we get So I, you know, it was just a convenient opportunity. Plus I had my second kid around that time. So I was like, well, dude, I'm just going to be busy, you know?
Okay. Not to be like a creep or anything, but I do remember that because at a certain
Why is that
point,
creepy?
I think you were more absent.
Because you're the first time.
No, because because
every beer he thinks of us.
No, I just meant more along the lines of, I remember all these things, and like, can you look me in the face and say that you remember me, Scott?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't know your name. I'll be honest.
Shit, okay.
But I like literally as soon as I saw you on Zoom, I'm like, for sure I've seen you in the tasting room before. Like I know.
Okay.
I'm really good with faces. I've been back. I literally don't remember some people that I hung out with like twice a week in high school. I don't know their name.
One time that I remember interacting with you, and it reminds, like, to this day, like it's one of my best memories of Sanctum, just because. I went just to get some Growlers. I wasn't going to stay. I was just getting some to-go beer, and I go in, and I think George was serving me.
Okay.
Almost positive. George was always there, so it was always George.
When he worked there, he was almost there every day.
Yeah, exactly. So George, I go. And I asked for 3 Growlers. There's a reason, and I can't remember, but I asked for 3 Growlers specifically. And what I loved about Sanctum was the gold Growlers.
I know, we were the OG. We were the first people in the country to order them, and we were the second people to get them, unfortunately.
Oh, shit. Well, either way, to this day, I've never seen another brewery have gold Growlers, and that was one of the things. I was like, first off, I was already like, this is my first introduction to a brewery. I love this place. The beer's great. Love this place. And then the golden Growlers were like, this place, like, this is
became a unicorn.
Like top tier. Yeah, exactly. Like Ireland's state animal,
Ironman?
country animal. I don't know what. 64 ounces in, Jimmy. Shut up.
plus a michelada, plus
a michelada, plus a fucking Bud Light. But that's besides the point. No, what I'm trying to say. Oh, and since you've been on the call with us, we finished that 64 ounces, and we started drinking a Sierra Nevada hazy little thing IPA. And anyways,
hazy little thing called hop.
hazy little. That was a good Elvis impression. Holy shit!
Catch me Friday nights at no, I'm just kidding.
Friday nights at Homage. No, I'm just kidding.
Doing Elvis impersonation. It's like, what has become of the brewers in this world? They've sunk so low.
The gimmicks they're lowering themselves to, bringing fake Elvises. No.
No, for sure. And honestly, though, I even like you guys share little anecdotes about Sanctum are like they're heartening to me because it's like that was my favorite part was just like we told the city when we were getting licensed, we're like, listen, we were the first brewery in Pomona city limits, and they were trying to take away the taste. Really? They wanted to limit our tasting size, limit our tasting amounts, how much we could serve someone, what hours we could open, all these things. And literally I was like, first of all, I was like, that's such a burden on us, and there's already repercussions if we overserve. We're already legally responsible because we're a manufacturer. Like that's an ABC thing that they warn you about. They're like, you're civilly responsible if you overserve someone and they crash. Like you could be sued. Like there's all these, like that's already in place. So I went through all these things, but like right, so I said the main thing.
I'm not gonna get too drunk to the point where I'm gonna get fucking...
Yeah, because it could screw them over. But but crazy. What I said, I was just like, you know what? Pomona has very few places that are just nice to be. You know, that's what we want. True. We just want you to have a nice place to be. It doesn't matter if you're drinking beer or not. It's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's hot in the summer. The trains are loud. But you know what? It's chill.
No, one time, like, we were sitting outside, and we put our drinks on the bench closest to the railroad tracks. And when the train came, they were shaking like crazy. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember like that memory.
That goes back to the quality furniture.
The benches.
Can you talk about how we started going to Sanctum again because they had a Groupon?
Oh yeah, that was so. This is a thing that like most breweries wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
She's the cheap ass.
They wouldn't. A lot of breweries.
I loved Sanctum, but as soon as she found out that you guys had a Groupon, she took full advantage of it.
She loved Sanctum then. Well, see what happens with. So here's our thing. We have never, other than Groupon, to my knowledge. Well, but besides something Jason did, which I didn't agree with, which he started a happy hour on Thursdays, and I hated it. But
I remember that. I loved it.
Yeah, of course you did. But everything was $5, and you were already a regular. So
exactly. Yeah.
Groupon, and that were the only times we really discounted beer visibly. And the reason we did Groupon is because it's not visible unless you're already a Groupon user. And then we were just using it to try to attract people to like, hey, this is the cheapest thing we could do because we actually get paid to use Groupon because we get a small piece. I mean, we profit on those deals, by the way, is like, so whatever you pay, we get half of that. And it's already discounted heavily.
Can I say right now? We're not
well, either way, I mean, I feel like...
Hold on, I can't even hear Jimmy. Josh.
Sorry. Jimmy, what did you say?
Can I say right now, we're not trying to make
I can't
we're not trying to like find business ideas.
Even if you were, I'd share them just the same.
We don't even have a podcast. We're just trying to start brewing and trying to get the ideas from you.
Yeah, so no, it's like
all this equipment is in
this guy's like questioning.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like interrogating you, like, well, how'd you do it?
So give me every ingredient to your guys' solar hell.
Listen, if you wanted props to make it look like you had a podcast, you probably wouldn't have bought KRKs because
well, first off, the KRKs is part of the ensemble, but yeah, I have KRK Rocket 6s, and I dig it. I'm all that.
I dig it. No, I mean, we talked about that briefly. That's how I ended up in LA.
I was surprised about that. I was like, wow, this guy's a brewery owner and he used to do audio engineering. That's cool.
Yeah, and I did some producing and some other stuff with a friend of mine who actually is like a real producer now. But he still tells me, I think he's just flattering me, but he's just like, dude, the beats we made were like some of my favorites. And I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, yeah. Well, and Mike, my friend's name is Mike Wooford. He's I don't know what he's doing these days. We kind of lost touch. Nothing bad, just grew apart. But
if you're listening, homie,
Yeah, I know.
Scott's
Yeah.
here.
No, but he had a good touch. He just had a good musical ear. Been a musician since he was a kid. Went to Grammy camp when he was 13. Like he was one of those kids that was just super talented. And he I think he worked for Capitol for a while. He was kind of part of their camp where he would just be making beats, trying to work developing artists and stuff like that. And he was talented and he really worked at it and tried to do it. And I was more like along for the ride. I still like making music and producing stuff, but it's more just like for whatever. It's like when I record something nowadays, I think I will listen to this and that's fine.
Honestly, okay, so that's how I feel. And I'm the kind of person that's still trying to, like, I still use a moniker, like I still use like a fake name.
Right.
And I still try to develop myself as an artist, but I'm also like the kind of person that's at the point in their life where I'm like, I don't care if anyone really listens to it.
Right.
Like I'd rather just do it for fun.
But and that's
all in a story.
Yeah, exactly. I know we've strayed pretty far from beer, but that's fine with me.
No, exactly. No, I could talk to you about music all fucking day.
I'm like I have a Les Paul right here plugged into my interface. If you
all right, play something for us. Show your true
later
state.
on. I'll play myself out.
All right. No. Oh, really? Okay. Cool with that. No, but okay. So if we can go back on track. One of the things. I mean, we kind of briefly touched on it somewhat in a roundabout way. But so you as a brewer and
was amazing. Am the best. Am the great. No, I'm just kidding.
I agree. I mean, which ones did you make that I love? Okay, wait. Can we talk about
the lime lager? The lime lager was not mine. That was Jason for sure. Solar was me. Yeah, Solar was me. Tangeronimo was me.
Wait, but Solar was my favorite.
Okay, but I thought you liked the lime version.
That's not the lime one?
No, Solar's the regular.
Oh.
Solar's the decaf.
Oh, shit. And
it was so literally
like lagery.
Yeah. It was crispy and just delicious and malty and goodness. Yeah, loved it.
So can I ask?
Anything,
no,
Jimmy.
You can't, Jimmy.
You have my heart.
Wow. Yeah. So what was the inspiration of the sushi beer?
Oh, okay. So this is another one. I can't take credit for this one, but I was there when the discussion happened. So what happened is one of our very first employees, Natalie, she's a super cool gal, was a brewer herself, was involved with I think the nation's oldest and largest homebrew club called the Maltese Falcons, or the Maltose Falcons. Sorry, duh. But they're probably they'll probably kill me if they heard that. But, if you find me dead, you know why. So anyway, she was talking about it was year 1 or 2 anniversary. So this was very early on. They were talking about it, joking around about it, how they would do it, what different ideas, and then they brought up a sushi beer, and because I hate sushi, by the way, I can't stand seafood.
What?
So they're like, this podcast is over.
This podcast has been brought to you by nothing because it's not going to air because Scott's.
Because we hate everything now.
No, don't worry about it. I'm not doing right.
Okay, no. I'm interested.
Well, so let me tell you. Okay, here. First of all, I literally I gotta go in probably 15 minutes. I just want to give you a heads up.
Okay,
I want to finish this this thing because California Rolling to me is still it's one of our greatest achievements because it didn't suck. Okay, so the goal was, can we make a sushi beer, and then it became. So I was like next to this discussion. I wasn't really actively part of it. I refined it maybe 1% after we talked about it. But so Natalie and Jason had this discussion. So this is Natalie, one of our first employees, Jason, my partner, and they were going back and forth. So they said, "What about a California roll? It's a simple thing. It's a crab, it's avocado, it's seaweed, it's rice, right? Like that's basically all it is, and cucumber." And so they're like, okay, well, cucumber's easy. Rice is easy. You can use rice in the brewing process as easily as you can use barley. It's super simple. And okay, so bam, step one.
Already part of alcohol.
So then what? Okay, crab. Well, we have a boiling wort. We can cook crab in the boiling wort, and it'll whatever flavor comes off of it, fine. But we're not actually putting crab in the beer. We're just cooking the crab in the beer. So That was step 2. Okay, that's cool. All right, what about avocados? Like, well, that's gross, and there's no way to use that in a beer that we can think of. So what if?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But I mean, I know
Put
other
as a
breweries.
topping on top later.
Other breweries have done it. I don't know how, but
It's like instead of like an orange peel, it's just
yeah,
put an
it's
avocado
literally
on
just
it,
like
yeah.
a sloppy like greenish gray avocado. You're just like gross.
Yeah,
dude.
It's not even cut correctly. It's just like literally like a fucking.
Yeah. So what we decided instead was you can get avocado honey, which is honey made from avocado trees, like the bees pollinate avocado trees. So we had to special order that, but we found it. And then we're like cucumber, another easy one. You just put cucumber, like we're basically dry hopped with cucumber. So it's like after the beer had fermented and it's about to be cold crashed and about to be served, we're like, all right, just add avocado or cucumber for a day or two, and it'll get that fresh cucumber flavor. And then the seaweed was the same thing as the crab. It's like, let's just steep it in the boiling wort to get some of that umami kind of seaweed flavor. And then so basically what you tasted, because this probably sounds so disgusting, but what you tasted.
No, I agree. No, because the thought of a sushi beer, all the elements combined sounds fucking disgusting.
Yeah, but then what you tasted was a honey cucumber beer with like a little bit of like a savory note that you wouldn't even notice unless I told you it was there, and then you'd be like, that's what it is.
And it's not like it tasted, it's not like I was like, oh, I'm eating a sushi roll.
No.
It tasted more like, oh, I'm eating crab, and I have these flavors of like rice. I have these flavors of lime. I have these flavors of like this and that.
Yeah.
Like soy sauce, like random shit. Like
it just because all those it kind of, if you eat sushi, you already know what it's like. Your brain expects it to taste a certain way, so then you add in all the gaps. So I liked drinking the beer, and I hated sushi, and I loved that beer. So I mean, you know,
it's funny. Actually, this guy reminded me earlier. The first time I took him there, I was like, "Oh, we need to go to this brewery. Like, it's so good." Actually, they even have they have a sushi beer, man. Like, come, like, and so
get out.
First time we went, I think it was the first time, or maybe the second time I had the California rolling. It was when you guys first rolled it out, maybe like 3 years ago.
Unintended.
So anyway, no. So I went there and I tried it. I think I tried it for the first time with him because I remember drinking it and being like, it doesn't taste like sushi, but it tastes like it tastes like everything that you would think of, like cucumber. You would have notes of cucumber. You would have, and I'm not the kind of person that's like.
my thing about here's how, whenever somebody asks me, they're like, how do I taste beer and and I'm like, here's what you do. You pour it, and I'm like, this is legit. Like some of this is like, you may not, it's not, some of it's not intuitive. Smell it first, because that's the first thing to go away. So like, you know, just if you're pouring from a can, pour it in a glass. If you're pouring it into a glass, if you're not, I don't judge you. Just take a whiff, you know, because some of that stuff just goes away real quick if it's like not really condensed in there. Yeah. It might just evaporate. And then drink it, and if you like it, you did a good job tasting it. And if you don't like it, you did a good job tasting it. Like there's no it's just it's simple. It's like, what brings you joy is what beer you should drink. So if you like, if people would come in and be like apologizing that they like Dos Equis, and I'm like, why are you apologizing? I'm like, that's all I drank on my honeymoon because I knew it wasn't watered down. You know, so like I was at an all-inclusive resort. I'm like, I know that's not real rum, bro.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot to discuss. Here's the thing I'll say about beer, as far as a snooty thing. That drives, like, beer when it comes to food pairing is infinitely superior to wine in every way, in every measurable factor. And anybody who says otherwise has never done a proper beer and food pairing. So that's one thing that I think and I like wine. I'm not a wine hater. I love drinking it. Me and my wife enjoy wine.
Beer before you started brewing it, so
exactly. But my point by saying that is that it is true. It is truly. It undergoes some of the same processes that you do in cooking. You roast malt, you kiln malt, you cook malt before you put it in a beer. You boil the beer, you caramelize sugars in beer sometimes. Like you do these things that are similar to cooking. None of that happens in wine. You know, you ferment it and you drink it. And there's a very narrow spectrum of flavor in wine comparatively. Beer has everything from weird sushi crab beer to sweet honey beer to dark chocolatey stouts to coffee beers to super bitter IPAs to everything in between, to malty, earthy, and sour and tart and all these things. So it's like it's way better at pairing than wine will ever be. So yeah.
Can I ask, what would you consider a palate cleanser?
So palate, when I've done beer and food pairings, the way that you cleanse your palate, in my favorite way, is to drink your next beer, 2 or 3 times before you're getting into your quote unquote pairing. So let's say you're doing a flight, like we did a beer and food pairing at the Rookery, which is a local restaurant in Pomona that I love.
And actually, Scott, I'm going to talk about that later. Actually, let's just go into it because I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
I was there for the first Inner Sanctum at the Rookery.
Oh.
Actually, me and the ghost voice in the background were there because we were part of the Inner Sanctum. And during your guys' first year. And we went to you guys' first pairing, and we moved to Anaheim in the middle of that year that we became members of Sanctum. And we were supposed to go to your guys' second pairing. I don't know if it was still at the Rookery or not, but we were supposed to go, but then we thought, we're all the way in Anaheim, should we go? Anyway, but the Inner Sanctum is one of my highlights of Sanctum.
Yeah, it was fun,
and
and we
in such a great way.
We everybody who joined it really loved it, and then when we went to do it again, a lot of people were bummed that we didn't do it again because we didn't really see the people that did it would have done it every year. I think forever, like they were really thrilled to be part of it. But we were hoping it would be a vehicle with which to fund future things, and we only had like 17 or 20 members, so it was like. Yeah, I mean, and we loved doing what we did, but it was a lot of effort on my part because I was planning with stuff.
I was member number 50, and my girlfriend was number 51. So you had more than that.
Well, but the point is, we didn't have enough to we thought we would literally like be able to raise like $20,000 or $30,000 or something, and that would be able to dude, that'll fund all this cool stuff we're gonna do, and then you guys get to reap the rewards first, and that was the payoff,
like what I personally always felt like Sanctum was one of the best breweries around, but I don't think that you guys got as much credit as you deserved, and I think that shows in the Inner Sanctum because I've seen other breweries do membership type programs, but never in the way that you guys did. And I think that you guys and I don't know if you guys took it from somewhere else, but for my experience, you guys did a membership program that worked. Like for me, it worked. Growler fill every month, of whatever fill that you wanted, and then on top of that, we get to go to the secret parties and tasting.
Well, the beer and food pairing, because I mean, and that's what that was what the goal was. Like, people do bottle clubs. We don't really do that many bottles. We don't really do that much rare, crazy beer that would make sense to be like only you can get it if you're in the Inner Sanctum. It's like, we just weren't that. And this kind of goes back to like Sanctum always struggled to find that like popular niche. Because we had a lot of niches, not a lot of them were popular, so it's like,
and that's what, like, to a person like me who appreciates beer in the way that I do, like, I always, like, I felt like you guys deserve so much credit, and that's also part of the reason why I want to, like, bring you on our podcast and kind of explain, like, because you guys were a big part of my life. Like,
well, thank you. And I'm happy to be. I honestly, you're, I guess what is it? One of the local papers. One of the local papers had reached out somehow, and then they said that no one was available for comment. And I'm like, well, my email had 0 emails of anybody trying to get in touch with me when they wrote like Sanctum closed, unfortunately. And I was like, but then you guys reached out, and I'm like, you're like the only people who have reached out, believe it or not. So I'm just like, why wouldn't I talk to you?
And what's funny is to burst your bubble right now, we're not like some great podcast or anything.
No, I don't care.
We're literally just starting out. But
if us 3 are the only people that ever hear it, I'm happy to listen to it, and I'm glad I did.
No, and I feel the same way. Like I literally, like, just talking to you, like it brings us all like in a good mood, and I feel like just having this experience is notable. And
Well, do you want to here? Okay.
First time experience.
I have to go in about like 1 or 2 minutes. So, do you guys have any questions you haven't asked? You really want to know before I play myself
lightning
out?
round. Speed round.
Lightning. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so holy shit! Wait, what? There's a speed round going on. Hold on,
Oh, too much gain. Chill out.
Okay. Well, either way, I like it. I like what you're doing, Scott. Speed round. So, as a self-proclaimed former knucklehead turned brewer and owner, if you get that joke of the knucklehead thing, what advice would you give to people who are just starting out to brew, people who just want to even get their feet wet in it? You can give it like a second answer.
Jeez, was that a demon?
That's a dog. 2 dogs, actually. It's supposed to be part of the show.
I would honestly find there of all the home brewers I know, most of them are only snobby about how good their beer is. Otherwise, they're some of the best people I know. So if you really just wanted to dip a toe in with literally nothing to lose, find like a homebrew club on like Facebook or like the Maltos Falcons or something. Like you can find these guys and just like see if they're having a meet or a big brew where like a bunch of people get together and brew, and just hit them up. They're like, hey, I want to come and just I've never brewed. I love craft beer. I just kind of wanted to come and check it out. Would it be cool if I come and hang out for a few hours and bring some beer? And they'll probably be like, absolutely. That's like the easiest way. And then if other than that, if you want to do what I did, you know, buy a couple books, you know, How to Brew by John Palmer is a good primer, you know, check that out and then just kind of learn up, know that stuff like the back of your hand, and then your first beer will actually be good. That's my advice.
And then actually that reminds me, because there's another brewery right down the street from where I live now in Anaheim called Phantom Ales, I think.
Yeah.
And they have a weekly brewers, not guild, but like brewers like a club thing where they explain to people how to brew and like also help them through their first home brew and like stuff like that, which I think is great. Like great resource for people who don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. No, it is. It's a good way to just get your feet wet. So. Yeah,
definitely. But let's keep moving on. So Sanctum, in your entire time as being an owner and part-time being a brewer, what was your favorite beer that you brewed yourself or someone else brewed? Was there something else that maybe you couldn't achieve that someone else did?
Like within Sanctum, you mean?
Yeah, within Sanctum.
Dang. That's a good question.
I know it's a loaded question.
I think Wizard. Honestly, my favorite beer was one I brewed, and that's just because it was. You know, obviously you can brew what you want when you're the head brewer. But I made.
And maybe no one else likes it, but you did.
That's sometimes true, and a lot of times your most popular beer is the one you hate the most. That was also true. But I brewed. I've never. I have
really.
I don't think I've ever consumed 1 pint of that in one sitting.
Wow. Okay.
And it's our best. It's been our best. It was our best seller for 5 years.
So whatever. You know,
but yeah, it is what it is. I don't hate it. Obviously, I made it well, but. So my favorite beer was probably Wizard Light. It was a Citra dry hopped lager, and it was also I did a lot of the artwork for Sanctum. Also, side note,
cool.
Yeah, so and the reason I do a little graphic design is because I had a brewery that needed labels from time to time. So I just tried to get better and better at it, and eventually I got into like digital painting and stuff. So some of the labels like if you look up, I don't know. Here, let me try this right now since I'm at a computer. I wonder if like anybody could do this, because I don't want to tell people if they couldn't, but like Absolutely was Sanctum label. Let's just see if it's in the internet. It's not.
It's not. It's definitely not. No, but
we had a beer called we had a brew called Absolutely, which was a brute IPA, and the label was so cool.
I feel like I remember it, but I don't.
Anyway, it was like a hand paint. Oh yeah, if you search Sanctum Absolutely, so it's ABSOBRUTELY, and you'll just see the artwork. It's like a digital painted hop, and it just looks gorgeous. So that was like the motif we were trying to go with, but we could never really pick up the the packaging momentum that we needed to like, you know, we really needed to be doing can releases in huge volume with both distributor and in-house sale, and we just never got the momentum we needed. So that was a good beer also, by the way, but also just had cool artwork. I got into stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah. So Wizard.
I remember the artwork. I see
Wizard
it.
Light.
I wonder right now.
I wonder if that one
Absolutely, I remember it.
Oops. Let's see. Wizard
And
Light.
actually,
if you search Wizard Light, so that's Wizard and then Lite Sanctum.
Okay.
You'll see the wizard I drew for that as well was like a guy like not very good at drawing people, but that was that was like a guy like I don't know, he was like looking up a beer recipe or something. If you look super close, you know, like
Gandalf the Grey.
Yeah, but that was
his red ale.
And he's basically based on a picture of me, so he kind of looks like me, but not really. Just because I can't draw so well, so I had to like literally copy like a human because I don't know how to do it.
I wouldn't have even thought that you were an artist of any sort. Just I don't know. I feel like I always picture brewers as like brutes.
Yeah, I'm both a brute and an artist. I have a soft side.
I can see that. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, so I never got to finish one story earlier where your guys' golden crowlers. I walked out with 3. Okay, so I would when I would grab crowlers from you guys, I would stack them because it was the best way to carry them out.
Sure.
If I didn't have a bag or anything. So I go walking out, 3 crowlers stacked on top of each other. My hand on the bottom layer, another hand on the top layer. I go walking out, and I remember you walking up to me and being like, "That's the way to do it."
Sweet.
Because that is what you would say. So.
Yeah, that sounds. If you couldn't tell from talking to me for 2 hours now or whatever, that's exactly what I.
Like, I got it stacked. I got my hand on the bottom and the one on the top.
So I know you only had a second or so left with us. So I want to be able to give you your time. But I just wanted to close saying that first of all, I loved Sanctum. It was a great spot for me, and I don't know what you guys are planning to do in the future, if someone's going to buy it and take it over under the same name, or I don't know. But the legacy that Sanctum left for me was that of one of the best, because Sanctum always kept innovating, always kept trying new things with beers, and every time that I went, there was always a new surprise. But there was always the tried and true favorites that I would go there to get. And Tan Geronimo being one of them. California Roll on the Seasons. The Solar Hellas Lager was one of my favorites. Handmade Cities, hands down one of the best. But my most memorable, as I explained at one point, my first time being there was a coffee one that you guys, and I remember you guys used coffee platch beer to it. It was some sort of coffee stout or imperial or something, and
that was probably Up All Night.
That sounds about right.
We had different variations of that beer, but we had Blackest Night, which was like our core quote unquote stout that we would brew like all winter. And that was an imperial stout, and then sometimes we'd make coffee variants, and the Klatch version was one of the best, if I remember correctly, as well.
Yeah,
and then we did another version. We did Mocha Noche, but that was like when we got it really nerdy, where we would get our own coffee roasted from Espresso Republic in Chino, and they would they would do it just for us. We'd ask for this custom blend because we wanted it to taste like those guys are crazy. They literally we told them some stuff, then they literally brought us some coffee, brewed it, and it was tastes like peanut butter and chocolate, and had no body whatsoever. And I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. I was like, I want this.
You just literally came to them like, hey, we want to brew a beer with these notes, these flavors.
And they legitimately just made me a custom roast. That was exactly, and it was so close. Awesome. I was like, I didn't know roasting was this precise. I just thought it was more like winemaking. You just get what you get. And it was no, they're like, no, we control all this stuff. They're like, because I said all this stuff that's in vogue right now for people to just drink coffee, like blueberry. And I'm like, none of that. I want none of that in my beer. I want Like,
Oh, yeah.
I want chocolate notes or peanut butter notes or like toffee. I don't want fruit. And he was like, cool, yeah, we can do that. And then like just made it. And I was like, dude, this is far out.
Scott, real quick, you can tell Josh tastes like these nuts.
These nuts.
It's these notes. It's these notes. Pineapple.
Hey, come on! You gotta riff off
notes of peanut butter. Not these nuts.
These nuts.
Damn it, Jimmy. All right. Well,
man.
Scott, we appreciate you, first of all, accepting our invite to be on the show.
Yeah, anytime.
Second of all, I especially appreciate all of the beer that you provided for me.
It was just for you, so I'm glad you.
Thank you. No, I agree with that. It was definitely all for me. I'm obviously the most important person in Pomona.
Fair enough.
Now that I'm in Anaheim, I'm even more important. No, no, but I appreciate all that you guys did.
I appreciate you saying that.
Like
that
I
was our
said,
goal, man. That was literally our goal. Was just like if we can have people just like being here and enjoy what we're doing, you know.
Right.
And
Great
you know,
great ambient energy over there.
thank you.
It was like
Appreciate
and
that.
I always was so excited, and especially now, like I'm just excited to not necessarily give you guys a send off, but just to honor Sanctum's memory. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
But you know, we will post when something happens, and we're just going to hope that, you know, the people we're thinking or in talks with selling to are all good people, as far as I know.
Right.
I mean, and I would personally endorse, you know, them opening a space there. So I hope that it continues to be a cool place. It's going to be different. It's not, you know, but it's hopefully going to be.
I mean, it's obviously not going to be Sanctum.
Right.
Again.
But hopefully it'll be something great and something cool,
Yeah, exactly.
and something we can still be proud of, because I still live in the community, you know. So I still want it to be something. I don't want it to be trashy and gross, and you know, I don't want it to be open till 4 a.m.
You don't want to
and
go
become
back
a
and be like,
nightclub.
what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah,
I built this place from the ground up.
Yeah, but I would like to go back and sit in a chair. So
Yeah, no, I feel that.
versus a bench.
So is there anything that you like to say to
plug.
anyone that's listening? Or I wouldn't necessarily like assume that you're going to go back into craft brewing.
Right.
But is there
I've been offered so many times to go back in already, and it's just I'm almost like stung by it. I'm just like I can't yet. You know, like I can't do it. I can't go back. I'm hoping I can take a break. I might just need to take a job because I need one now. But you know, I'm definitely. I think if I were to leave anybody with anything, it's just like, you know, there's a lot that I've been through personally that I thought would take me out, and I've now been through 5 or 6 things that I thought would take me out, and they haven't. And
including Corona.
Yeah, and you know, but and to just keep in mind, like, things happen, you know, like, and it's kind of touchy feely, but it's like, it's just, you know, I just honestly, because that's what I've learned from this is like, you know what, I'm not made of glass. You know, I didn't break just because my business failed. Like, and it's a success, dude. You know how hard it is to keep a business running for 6 years, even. It's like, you know, that's a success.
Something
like,
I wanted to mention earlier when you said like Sanctum failed, I wanted to tell you like, no, I don't believe that Sanctum failed. I think Sanctum succeeded and did what it was there to do.
I agree. I'm starting to take that tack now. So that's I'm getting to that place where I can, like, I'll be honest, like right now, just because there's so much going on and it's stressful because we're still paying, you know, we have to pay rent, even though we're not making any money, and we're like, you know, we're trying to find a buyer and get some deals closed and stuff. So it's sketchy, but like literally I opened my drawer to get dressed, and I saw a Sanctum shirt, and I literally was just like, fuck, you know, like, it's just like, I'm just like, gosh, like, I just wish I could get away from it for a minute, you know, like, you know, but hopefully, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, you know, who we're going to sell to if we sell, or if we have to go bankrupt, and so be it. But it will come to an end, and I'll look back with nothing but fondness. So appreciate you guys, and I wish you nothing but the best success. Let me know when you guys are ready to air or whatever. You want to send me a link. I'll throw that out on our Instagram just to be like, hey, if you're wondering, like, there, you can get some information from this podcast, and that might be good for you guys too. I mean, we don't have many followers either, but you know.
Well, I'm sure we have way less than you, but no. That
See, this is just our history of collabing with people that we can help.
Oh, thanks. Well, we're shit, so you're just gonna throw us a bone. No.
Okay, so are we and everybody we collab with. No, I'm just kidding.
Definitely.
All right, dudes. Have a wonderful
Thanks,
evening.
Scott.
All right, dude.
No,
See you guys
too.
later.
All right, take care, man. Appreciate it.
Later.
Scott Lucas was cool.
You don't always got to say his last name. He's not a superhero. He's not Iron Man. He's not Tony Stark. Scott Lucas of Sanctum. He's kind of a superhero to me. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to today's Growler Hour podcast, and we hope you enjoyed your time here.
What do you got to say, Josh? What do you got to say?
I'm saying it, and you're interrupting me.
Yep.
I'm literally in the middle of saying it.
Now you know how I feel.